just a couple of minutes and then we will start our adventure because I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I am too, but perhaps people would like to hear about the magazine.
Yeah, I mean,
All
yes.
right. So that's for you to talk about since you are the creator.
Yep, this is the number one. We already have the number zero. It was the beginning of the series, and every 6 months sort of we publish an issue. So 2 volumes a year, and it's a dream. It was a dream of mine for a long time, and I wanted to create a magazine of esotericism that was completely different, like say very academic without being academic. I mean, very informative, deep, and not the usual magazine you find. And because for me, esoterica, the esoterica is a yes, the esoteric world is something deep, is something beautiful, is something very artistic, and is a field across with psychology, anthropology, history, philosophy, art. So I wanted to connect everything and think about and talk about esoterica from all over the world, not just the Western one. I want to have a voice coming from Africa, one from South America, one from Japan and Asia. Exactly. So we have collecting a lot of voices, and what was incredibly important is the depth of the content and the beauty of the presentation. I wanted to create an esoteric magazine as beautiful as an art magazine. And I'm happy now I mean, it's not even a year that we have started. We launched the first one last October, November. So this is your article. Yes, you are disappearing, but I like it. It's very ghostly
It's
like.
just beautiful for those of you who don't know about it. I mean, you can get an e-version online. You can get the hard
Yes, the
copy,
physical copy.
which
Yeah,
they're going to keep. You're not ever going to get rid of this.
yeah,
This
it's a
is
collectible object. I mean, this is the idea. I wanted to create the kind of magazine that you collect, and sometimes you go back to have more idea, more inspiration, more knowledge. I don't want to create something that you read and trash because it's something connected to this very moment and it has not a lifespan. We are talking about ideas, they always stay there. The origin of tarot, a specific deck, or an interpretation of dreams. Or I mean, we wanted to do something very, 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 very deep and very nice. But I think it's time for start. So I'm incredibly happy to have you as the Janet as the first person that I interview officially as the Dscombobulator because the magazine is just the beginning of what I would like to do. The idea is to bring people live to have a dialogue with our readers and to explore more your ideas, your energy, your writing, your persona, because the magazine is just the beginning. Then we have to go outside the pages and find life and discuss, as Plato, one of my favorite philosophers, I was about to say poet because for me, it's always poetic, his vision. I was lucky enough to translate from ancient Greek. In high school, I studied ancient Greek, and I love it. And what always stay with me is the core idea that philosophy is alive, has to be dialogic. So is philosophy, the real philosophy, born from a dialogue between people. And as soon as you write it down, is a dead talk. So he's not alive anymore. You kill him by writing. And this is the reason why he wrote a lot of books, none of them talking about his philosophy. They were just like the little trick that I give you to make you curious about my way of thinking, but I never say anything about it. Too precise. You have to come to my school and learn and everything. So we are here to dialogue, and you have an incredibly fascinating background because you have two university degree, one in something very specific, very technical, that is biology, and the other one is, I don't want to say the opposite, but it's completely different field because
yeah.
it's psychology, transpersonal psychology. And you are an expert in dreams. And I love that because if you think about the history of humankind, dreams are always have a very special place. Think about the shamanic dreams, the connecting with some other entity, the gods, the ancestors, to bring information to our plane to exist and to solve problems, to peep into the future of our reality. But then you think about Asclepius in ancient Greek, the temple of Asclepius. You are sick, you go there, he's the god of medicine, you go there, and the doctors were listening to your dreams before listening to your body. They were interpreting your sickness through your dreams. So there is always a connection. Is incredibly fascinating. So tell us why you started to be interested in dreams. What is your path? What brought you to biology, to the world of dreams?
Well, probably the better question would have been, how did I ever end up in science? Single cell electrophysiology, pulling my own electrodes, working with cardiac pacemaker cells. Never would I have ever imagined that. So actually, the question is reversed. I began with dreams. As a little girl, I was born into a house that my mother was always a dreamer. And I remember talking about dreams always. And my dreams, perhaps my oldest memories, are of dreams when I was so young that most people would never have paid attention. And yet those dreams have been the nodes that led me. Now, probably up until my graduation from grade school, when my grades were always good, and the mentors and teachers would say, well, you really should go into the sciences, you should look for a medical degree or whatever. And my comment was, I like seeing the body from the outside, not the inside. If I'm going to go into that field, I'll be like Frank Netta. And Netta was the great, well, he was the architect of the body as far as before we had the sophistication of technology. He drew the images of all the organs. He drew the images of the body, fantastic. And I have his books, Netta's books. But I never wanted to go into science. Never. That was the
Hmm.
last in my mind. As a freshman in a convent school, very a small school, there were less than 100 girls in the entire school. We had general science in freshman year. And the nun was talking about DNA and RNA and Rosalind Franklin and Watson and Crick. And then she drifted off a moment and she said, you know, perhaps someday someone will find the root of memory. It was like being smashed on the head. This little girl who sang opera, who wanted to do music and art, wanted to go to music and arts, but I wasn't allowed to go into the city. I stood up at the end of that class and I walked by her and I said to her, sister, I know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to discover memory. And I walked out of there completely changed. Now, 14 years old, had no idea of going into science. And one little comment that I guarantee if I asked the other 12 that was sitting in the room, they never heard it. But
Yeah.
for me, it changed my life. So the question really was, why? Why did I need to do science? So I spent all those years at NYU getting my doctorate, working in a hospital with internships, doing the single cell electrophysiology. And I'm delighted I did because it gave me an entry into doing true shamanic work so that when I would travel through the body, I could actually see the organs. I could understand the organs. And then it moved me more deeply because within a dream, for a novel I was writing, I thought I was making up some remedies. And I give it to, again, I'm not in science now, I'm writing and doing my dream work. And I send the novel to my doctoral mentor from NYU. And I said to her, I have some ideas about cancer. I have some ideas that, again, just come from dream. Could you look and see if it's, in quotes, too crazy? And Dr. Strand read it, and she was the head of neurosciences in Manhattan, a brilliant woman who studied with the Nobel Prize laureate. So she was amazing. And she called me and she said, Janet, I thought you told me you didn't keep up. I said to her, no, I haven't read anything. Well, she said, there's a new drug that's coming out on the market, and you've nailed it here. She said, you're working with the yew tree. Taxol is about to be released, probably in a few months. And that's what your dream shows. So hung up the phone and I looked up another dream initiated, which was mistletoe. And I said, well, all right, if one thing is real, what about the other? Sure enough, mistletoe is Ishkador, has been used. And interestingly enough, although the dreams were giving me the information, I ended up spending 3 years studying herbal medicine and another 5 Ayurvedic herbal medicine. So that my life seems to always be the dreams are going to give me one thing, but I'm going and I'm learning and I'm studying. But in the end, the dreams give me the most. And it was the Cherokee medicine teacher who had sat me down, didn't want me in class initially because I was an American studying shamanism, and certainly I had a doctorate. I wasn't going to understand him. And he said to me, I'm not teaching you anything. You're remembering. Sit and listen to the plants. They'll talk to you. So it's interesting because your question was like, how did I go from science into dreams? How did I ever dance into the world of science to begin with? Because I wanted to sing, I wanted to write stories, and it was all coming from the dream world. Yeah. So
Wow.
just the opposite,
It's
Andrea.
that, yeah, sometimes life make us meandering on a different path, but I think that every time what we experience is necessary. I'm sure that your experience with the medicine, with the science of medicine, will bring you new ideas or new perspective.
Absolutely. And even your word meander, the great meander is in Turkey, and it moves through an area so rich in the ancient philosophers that you would love. This is an area, and I think today, the fact that we do meander and waking and rational conferences is one side, but intuitive and dream consciousness is the other side. And unless the two of them come together, we don't have the full story.
Yeah.
So we don't want to live just in the dream world. We don't want to live just in the waking world, but we want to bring them together.
Absolutely, but I mean, it's absolutely yes. I think that the problem of we are facing now as society is that we divide. I mean, is from let's say is what it can be called the fault of Cartesio, Descartes, the problem of dividing so dramatically the spiritual world, so the thought, the thinking, the process, the logos, and our material world. If you think it started with Plato, Neoplatonism, and then when you started to consider the material world like something like bad, like the degradation of light, of the energy coming from the unicum, and then from the one, that this is the real reality. I mean, the real reality, the super reality, the nous, or like Plato will say, the world of idea, in the hyperurenos. So there, lost in a space that is not here. This is a big mistake because it divides us in two parts when one is not given value and the other has all the value. We are complex being and we are living here now. And our world is very complex and very fascinating. There are things that go beyond what we can explain, but not in a brutal way, in a single way. Think about, I mean, when I was studying logic, I studied philosophy at university, specific philosophy of language, so I have a lot of logic. It is fascinating to see how everything we believe it was crushed by the theory itself. I mean, you already know that if you want, you cannot discover all the truth of the universe. It's logically impossible, and not physically impossible, logically impossible. If someone not demonstrated the Gödel theorem is wrong, the Gödel theorem says very, very quickly is that if you want to have only the truth in the system, it's impossible to know all the truth. If you want
Mhm.
to know all the truth, you have to accept that in the system you have propositions that are false and you never know. So there are truths that are not possible to demonstrate by principle. And this is incredibly fascinating because
Well,
it
and
set a
yeah,
limit.
yeah. Absolutely. No, you're correct. What I was going to say is you looked toward science and dream and said, how do I put the two together? Well, in many ways, when I defended my doctoral thesis in psychology, my first comment was this is the antithesis of science, because in science, you want to present something that can be repeated exactly anywhere in the world. Otherwise, it's dismissed. And I said, I'm giving you exactly the opposite. What I'm telling you today, what the thesis is all about, I can't even repeat this tomorrow because the dream is alive. It's not static. The same way that a person changes over time, that dream expands over time. And I see this with the thousands of pages that I have of dreams. Their original meaning has been multiplied through time. And for my life, those dreams that I first saw as being meaningful, are tremendously meaningful. They've made my life what it is. So
Yeah.
you're quite right. We can't put things in a container. And it's like using those rules of logic or science to say we can measure something that's psychic. It's as though I want to take a flask that measures volume and bring it outside and tell you to take the temperature. They're dissimilar. That's not
Yeah.
ever going to work. Yeah,
Yes, but this is what the big mistake is, thinking there's something that you cannot replicate in a laboratory or you cannot measure and weigh in whatever form you want to measure is less important than something that is scientific because you can measure it and you can replicate and you can. There are things that are not possible to replicate, or there are things that you cannot study because from the moment itself that you start to study it, you modify the reality. I mean,
absolutely.
go think about when you go to the microcosm. From the moment you start to observe the microparticles, you're already interacting with them.
Yeah,
So you are not anymore an observer, you are an influencer, you are modifying the reality. And you go to the macrocosmos, to the galaxy, whatever we see is not there anymore, maybe for billion of years. We are seeing stars that are already dead for I
that's
don't know.
been gone a long time. Yeah,
So it's incredible. I mean, if you think everything, if you put everything in this kind of, in the cosmic perspective, from this ultra mini to the ultra macro, you will see we are almost, I don't want to say lost, but we are like really in a space that is incredibly magical. There is another dichotomy that always fascinated me because I talk about it a lot. Because I mean, I have the inverse journey. I was always a very scientific guy. I remember when, I mean, being raised and, I mean, being born Italian, I don't want to say forced because no one forced you, but everyone goes to church because it's tradition. You see all your
absolutely.
friends going to church. You're a little kid, you go to church, you study, you do catechism because it's normal. And I remember I mean, I think I was seven, something like that, seven, eight, maybe seven, I don't know. Anyway, and the priest would say, oh, yes, because everything was created by God. And I raised my hand and said, no, actually, it was the Big Bang. It was, this was my life. I was really, really scientific. Then, I mean, I studied ancient Greek and Latin, and then so history, then philosophy, and then something break completely because I discovered not to live in a world that was incredibly fascinating, the thinking, the exploring, but was very dry too. And this is the reason why I started to write and to paint, and I'm here now. I mean, I'm not a philosopher anymore, and I didn't do the PhD at the Columbia University as I wanted to, but I'm not regretted because I create another path for me. There is another dichotomy that is very interesting, I would say. That is one between reality and fantasy, imagination.
Yeah.
Usually we say if you imagine something, it's not real. And because it's not real, it means it has no value. And for me, this is the biggest mistake we can do
Mhm.
because, I mean, all the idea of the magazine is born from one single sentence. Magic as the science of the imagination. Imagination as the ability of creating, of dreaming, of thinking something that is not there, of remembering. It's thanks to our imagination that we can remember something and then in our mind change it. I mean, think about a house, the facade of a house. Maybe now it's white. You you can think about it and repaint in another color, imagine in another color. I mean, imagination is is a faculty that is incredibly
Well, yeah, and
powerful.
without that faculty, we wouldn't be able to function. When
No,
we wake up in the morning, the only reason we know where we are and where to go is because of the imagination, the ability of the mind to form images. And those images all have great meaning, which is why really the imagination is the great pool of the unconscious coming up, the voice of the deities of antiquity as well as the voice of the unconscious today. This is where everything is, which is why the creator, the discoverer finds something in there. But I'll always have someone ask me during my shamanic class as well, the vision I had seemed pretty amazing, but isn't it just my imagination? And I cross out that just and I say to them, it's the blessing of the imagination. Without it, you couldn't survive.
no,
Images tell us everything. The
no,
image is
I
far more
agree.
important than the word.
This is what fascinated me. This is what fascinated me about your writing. It's not just poetic. I really love the article that you wrote for us. I mean, it is incredibly amazing. But I love the way you talk about dreams, because sometimes, I mean, often honestly, it's very difficult to analyze your own dreams, and is a perception, is a fear, is a monitor, a caveat, is something that is coming, let's say, to put you in guard from the future, or something is direction, is very difficult. Maybe because we are not used to anymore. I speak about my dreams a lot with friends and everything, and many times, too often, I discover that they don't remember their dreams in the morning. And this is something for me that is quite shocking, because sometimes I don't know if it happened to you too. I'm very curious. If I woke up and my dream stopped in a moment, the night after, my brain started the dream from the moment it was interrupted, and I go on in days and days with the same dreams that is
Yeah.
developing and developing like a book, is like a story. It's fascinating.
Well, it does happen. And we do have about 5 dreams every night, the shortest ones in the beginning of the night. Usually something happens about every 90 minutes, but it's the longest dream right before we wake. That's the one that most people will remember. And those that don't remember their dreams, I often say to them, put an alarm clock on to wake you up a good 20 minutes, half hour before you actually wake, because that's when that last dream is probably ending. And don't get out of bed. Just rest, relax, and say, where was I? What was I doing? And then the trick is, if you don't remember, in that hypnopompic moment of coming out of sleep, make up a dream. But don't think about, oh, where do I want to be? What do you see initially? Where are you? Who's with you? What are you doing? And believe it or not, that's just as important. I've gotten people that have had to make up dreams. I had one gentleman who was an architect engineer, and he had never remembered a dream in his life. And he came to me for weeks. In fact, I was getting my culinary degree in Manhattan, and he'd take the ferry over just to meet me in my white outfit after class to work on his dreams. But the dreams were ones he made up in the morning, until one day he finally came and said, I remembered. I had a real dream. But the interesting thing is, when that dream comes, it's a palimpsest. What you're seeing on the surface is like Alice in Wonderland. You're tumbling, you're up and down, you're doing things you shouldn't do. There's no order because you're outside of time and space. And that's why I think a lot of people don't pay attention. But if
Yeah.
you start to peel away the layers and get underneath, you see the vellum with the truth of what the dream is trying to tell you. And the dream is meant to be looked upon and acted upon. And that's the serious nature. Some people will come with amazing dreams that are filled with all of these beautiful images, and they never do anything about it. It's not meant to be a fantasy, which the ancient cultures certainly understood, with their dream incubation. But I tell people, if you don't remember your dream, think about something you want to dream about before you go to sleep and get very emotional about it. And then go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, remember the dream or make up a dream, and then start to peel away the layers. What does it make you think of? And you know what? You probably get the answer to your dream. But of course, you need time and you need devotion to it. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen overnight.
No, dreams are incredibly important. I remember that I don't remember where I read it, and a technique that I still use, and I use, I mean, from the moment I discovered it. Usually when you have a problem, if when you are in bed before
Mm,
getting asleep,
that's
you
right. Before,
focus on the problem, and
hmm.
but not in an obsessive way. You try to stay on the problem before getting asleep. When many times, very often, you will
Yes,
dream the solution of that problem.
yes.
Usually when I'm overloaded, it's a creative job, you have many ideas and you don't know what. I go to bed even during the day. It's just 20 minutes of the bubble, reset the work, the mind, and many times you have incredibly meaningful dreams. But I mean, I know a lot of
It that's
history of.
called dream. It's called dream incubation, which is basically getting in touch with something that bothers you, or perhaps you want to see someone that's passed away that you'd love to connect with, or you have a puzzle that you just can't solve. It's like Kikule, the father of organic chemistry. He could not solve the chemistry of the benzene molecule.
Yes,
So he
I love that.
goes to
Yeah,
sleep and sees the Ouroboros, which
yeah,
most books will just say he sees Ring Around the Rosie. But the fact is, he sees what the molecule looked like, or Mendeleev, who did the table of elements, And it's written down that there was only one element that he misplaced, that the dream gave him in the wrong place. And again, I already gave the answer before I gave the whole thing. I feel he forgot the right one. I think the dream gave him the periodic table. He said the elements danced upon a table. So, but I think the real trick of that, yes, you're not obsessing over something, but like the ancients, they really wanted the answer. It was meaningful to
Yeah.
them. And I think that's the important thing. If there's something that has meaning for you and you really want to know before you go to bed, even if it brings up tears, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because the dream then will give you some sort of an answer. And you may not see it on the surface. But when we pull it apart, and certainly I do this in the private dream analysis, when I pull these things apart, the answers are there. So you're quite right. I mean, it's an ancient technique that's been used from 5,000 years ago.
No, it's fascinating. I didn't know there was that the dream incubation you were talking about. So we were talking about the same things for a lot of time without
Oh yeah, no, and
connecting the same thing. This is very fun.
it's in the next article that you're going to be
Oh, no,
reading
this is
with
really,
me.
really fun
Yeah,
because I mean, we have this kind of conversation for many, many
that's
days
right.
now. We are talking, chatting, and everything is absolutely fantastic. There is something that I found deeply intriguing and fascinating. You know that I completely fascinated by Carl Gustav Jung because he's so metaphysical, because he's so mystical, he's so alchemical. Something that really intriguing me is the symbolic nature of dreams, but not symbolic like if you think about what we in Italian call smorfia napoletana, that I don't know absolutely how to translate in English. The smorfia napoletana is let's say a traditional way of decoding dreams. Like if you dream a cow, this is the number. Usually it's connected with a number to something to have to happen, to play, to bet,
No, I
to,
know.
to
Yeah.
gamble, something like that. But many people think, unfortunately, that if you dream something, there is like a book of translation, like a dictionary from the symbols that you see and the meaning. What I like of Carl Gustav Jung that he did is the connection between the symbology of dreams with alchemy. There is another language that is incredibly symbolic because, I mean, you see, you talk about, you think that they may think about chemistry, an ancient form of chemistry, but sometimes it's something that is more spiritual, is completely different. Think about the
Well,
Jungian
it
Mystica.
is. I think the illusion most people have is that the alchemists were crazy people looking for gold. They were looking to make physical gold. And, Isaac Newton certainly was involved in alchemy, and he was
Yeah,
not looking to make physical gold, that's for sure. I think he was looking for the answers of being, of the truth of why we really are here. And looking at a dream alchemically, which is what I love to do very much in the nature of Jung, we don't ever put particular meanings on the symbols. And yes, I know with the background, and many people will go out, they'll look for a dream dictionary. I was asked to write, to compose a dream dictionary, and I refused. And I
of
said,
course.
absolutely not. I said, it'll only be useful to me for a short period of time because the images will keep changing. And I've basically said to people, look, if you want to start your own dream dictionary, probably use a loose leaf book, or if you don't work online, because you're going to expand each image to take up so much space. You're not going to have that space in a book that you're going to hand write, because the way it appears one day, it will not be another day. But to look at it in a book and say, these are the meanings, no. And
Yeah.
yes, a lot of the ancient cultures have done that. Each person has specific meaning. And yet, when you work with dream analysis, like when I work with people, I'll give them the alchemical twist, but I always begin a session with a good 15, 20 minutes spent on their life and what's happened in the week that they were not with me. And they're amazed to find out that what I'm getting is all of those little messages that they never got that is going to connect with the dream. What they did in waking and what happened in the dream is going to connect alchemically to show something that's moving around, that's transforming and changing and giving them a message about something naughty in their own life that they have to break, discombobulate, that they have to break up to
Yeah.
get new. But you're quite right. The old way, a lot of people will still look at those dream dictionaries. And,
Is that
even
but
I
we
think,
are
yeah, not in antiquity, people would look at them, but not not in the same manner.
No, there was, I mean, the ancients used to approach dreams in a more mystical and religious way. I
Okay.
remember when one day, I don't remember which author we were translating from Latin, but there was a sentence that stayed with me because it's is really fascinating, made me think a lot. And this author would say, oh, yes, because we have to remember that the dreams that are done in the moment before the wakes, they are the prophetic dreams. This is the one that we have to look at because this is where the gods are talking to us. And I was always fascinated because, as you, I have a very strange history of strange dreams, but it's like, as I said before, living in Italy is never easy. For me, was never was. A very Catholic country, very conservative, very oppressive. It is the reason why I love to live in England because it's more relaxed and it's more mystical as a landscape. It's a mystical landscape. When Italy is, the history is completely crushed by the church, and it is a pity. Or at least this was my experience. If someone else had a different experience, it's good for them. But I have a lot of dreams, of very strange dreams. And I remember that when I was a kid, my mother was quite sad, quite depressed. She would try not to show us these kind of feelings, but something were happening. And I remember every time I was dreaming my grandmother giving me messages. She was breaking, really breaking in normal dreams, the dreams of a kid. And she was breaking the dream, entering, say, you have to listen to me. No, I want to go on. I said, no, 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 listen to me. I have a message. Tomorrow morning, you have to say to your mother this sentence. And this went on for a lot of time. And one day I remembered one of these answer because she just said, remember, tomorrow morning says that the answer is yes. Okay. Then usually I was waiting till my father was away because I mean different. There's another story. I prefer to stay without him. He's a quite an ogre, quite uh, toxic masculinity. I was already different, so no, no good idea. But anyway, so I was waiting to be me, my brother, and my mother. I would say, Mom, I have a dream. This was the beginning. And when I say something like that, my mother said, oh, one of those. And then I said, yes, my grandma says the answer is yes. And I remember my mother was crying. It exploded crying. And what was the question? Oh, don't worry, don't worry. 30 years later, one day I was sitting in front of my mother. We were having dinner together. And I said, do you remember that dream? And my mother said, gosh, if I remember it. You shocked me. And I said, can you tell me now? What was the question? And she started crying. She was quite emotional. She said, yes, I was suffering a lot due to your father. And I was asking help to my mother. So I asked your grandma, what should I do? And the question was, should I leave my husband? And the question was yes. She didn't. And then my question was why you didn't? And what she said was quite shocking. So for you and for your brother, because Italy at the time was not the right place for a single mother. It would
Yeah,
be
no.
incredibly difficult to find a job. You have a lot of stigma from society. She would be judged negatively. The fault always falling on the shoulder of the woman. So it was quite shocking. So I understand when you say the dreams, and I always thought that when we are kids, we are open to this kind of reality. But then growing up with bottom up everything, we lose the ability of listen to us, listen or whatever it is there to listen to. I don't know, because I don't want to go into the mystic plane, but it is strange because for all my life I always said try to explain scientifically everything. But then at the end, I accepted that there are things that if you manage to give in a scientific explanation, you kill. It's like explaining a poetry just from a grammatical point of view. You kill the poetry.
Kill it.
You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. I think what it is that you may have gone through this too, even in a home where the dreams were honored. My mother was a dreamer. There was still that attitude sometimes of it's just a dream, go back to sleep. It's just a dream, forget it. For me, I was constantly seeing a lady in white at the bottom of my bed and constantly asking my mother and father to come in the room. I wanted them to see her. Now, she didn't show up for them. They didn't see her. I stopped asking, Most children might have said, okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to forget. I think you have to be kind of strong to say, okay, I'm going to continue. And I mean, for me, I opened up a closet and went in, and I ended up seeing everything inside the closet, um, making fantastic journeys that, as I said, I aced a world history class in my college degree when I did my baccalaureate. And the teacher went on his honeymoon. He left me the syllabus because I was the only one answering his questions. The fact is, if I had ever said to him, well, I didn't read the book. I journeyed in the closet of my childhood and I went to see all these things. I was there with that ancient culture. People would have said she needs help, you know, bring her to a psychologist. So if the child either shuts up and tells no one or hides it like I did, I mean,
Yeah.
my family really didn't realize what was going on, but I spent most of my time in it. So, but you're right. I think society, they look upon it as nonsense. They look upon it
Yeah.
as just a dream. And of course, some of the rat behavioral psychologists will also say, well, it's just the remnants of the day, forming together in the night. They have no real meaning.
Yeah, I know very well these kind of things because I live on my own skin. So this is the reason why I never talk about this kind of stuff or yeah, ideas or dreams with my father. My mother knew because we used to say that my mother was the witch of the family because she had dreams. No, I mean in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
when
today,
I was
get
a kid, my mother used tarot to tell amazing stories.
uh,
It was I mean, I have incredibly strange childhood because one side of the family, my father was the darkness, the depression, the control, the abuse, and my mother was like the fairy, the sparkle, the magic, the creativity. So imagine with whom I want to spend my day. Of
of
course, my
course.
mother. I mean, as a kid, my mother liberated I mean, if I'm an artist, I think it's thanks to her, not thanks to my father. And it's amazing that, but I remember that every time. I mean, when she used tarot, when people ask me, but do you remember, do you believe in tarot? My answer was, oh no, I don't believe in tarot. But if my mother read tarot, of course, yes. Because for me, she was the powerful witch. If my ma I mean, this is a little bit sad and a little bit depressing, but I mean, depressing is life. My mother passed away, is not here anymore. And the most vivid dreams, the most strange things happened when she was paralyzed in bed. She was not able to talk. She was not able to move. And I have to solve a lot of technical problems. I mean, bureaucratic, legal problems, because I was not able to take the decision for her because I was not the legal guardian. But to be the legal guardian, you have to declare impossible to, even she was incapacitated. I mean, she was not able to write, talk. I mean, she was paralyzed completely. So, anyways, horrible story. And I have a lot of dreams when she was appearing during my night. I mean, you have to find the document there, you have to pay attention to that. I left everything you need inside this drawer, you have to open the door, and I solve all the problem in this way. But then, when we were kids, she would always, I mean, as a kid, I was quite, I mean, absolutely obnoxious, like every kid, I guess. And my mother, whenever was furious, used her witchy power. And I remember she's always said, when I'm dead, I come during your night and pull your feet. And it's something that is incredibly scary as a kid. I always remember that because she was saying with authority, like, I will do it. And every kid is, oh my gosh, I get. And everyone in the family knows, my boyfriend, my brother. So when my mother passed away, I discovered that every one of us, because my boyfriend was incredibly connected to my mother, I mean, whatever, every one of us, every 5 minutes, woke up and we were looking at our feet in the bed, waiting we were expecting to see my mother. This is absolutely crazy. But then I talk about in the morning. I said, Kevin, my boyfriend said, I woke up every 5 minutes looking at my feet, and he started laughing. He said, I did the same. Then I called my brother. He said, you know that I was doing tonight? And I started laughing. Yes, I know, because everyone did the same. So it's crazy. I mean, this is a little bit, but it's interesting to see how this kind of perception is the dream-like. As you said, it's just a dream. They are only dreams. And what I find incredibly horrible, the society should teach and gave us the tools to be happy and to use all our power to transform our powers, our potential in activity, in something is actual, something that is there, that is used. But instead, our society is killing our dreams. It teach the kids to, you have to give up your dreams, you have to conform, you have to have a job, you have to make money, you have to buy a car, you have to have a house, you have to have a family. But this is not giving people tools to build their life, their own life. This is crush them in a cage. It's
Yeah,
reducing the world little by little.
and society has moved toward the physical, everything in the physical. And how silly, because the physical is what's going to fall apart. And that dream world is what's real. That's the major reality. And you're quite right. If a child is allowed to move into dream and to open up that, sealed container of the unconscious, to be given the wisdom to know how to move forward, they're not going to look toward all the commercialism of the world. And they're also, like you and I, they're not going to like dogma. They're not going to listen to the influences, the politicians, the people who want to tell us what we need to think. They're going to look at life from their own point of view. And they're going to understand that what we're seeing on the outside is like the palimpsest of life. What we're being told on the media by all the influences, by everything that people that are screaming everywhere on soapboxes, that has a message beneath, and it's hiding because the message above is meant to get the children to look in a certain direction, to get the voters to look in a certain direction, to get permission to do a war, to raise prices, to do whatever they're going to do. And we're not thinking because we're listening to the top. We're not
Yeah.
going into that intuitive world that would inform us like you. I also grew up in a family where you went to church every Sunday and you didn't question anything because that was law. That was the way it was. And I was deeply devoted to the rituals. I have my flask, I have my altar in my kitchen, and every morning I come down and I have my own ritual with my own belief system, not one that was thrust on me. I'm pleased and honored that there are such rituals in the world, that they help a lot of people who are not willing to go into the
Yeah.
inner world and do their own. That's good. They're doing a lot of good. But we need more people to be thinkers. And that's what we don't want today.
Yeah.
Quite
No, this
right.
is,
Like go
yeah,
to school, get a job, make money, get the house. Why?
exactly. What is the point of that? I mean, it's better to set your own life, the priority of life of experience it, explore it, and discover it, not in possession. At the end, when you die, what I mean, you don't bring yourself with your house, but if you have live a lot of memory, you are creative, you explore, it's completely different. But of course, it costs a lot. Being different is always difficult because you are the one that is completely different from the group. So have the group that close you or criticize you or push you away is always you always have to be very, very strong and very motivated otherwise. But I have a question for you because it's something that really, I guess, interesting everyone. What you give as a suggestion if we want to connect better with our spirituality or with our dreams, which way we can connect better, we can remember better our dreams or see deeper in our dreams, something that is easy that we can do, something that we can explore.
Right. I think you have to be seriously dedicated to want to do it. The same way that this lovely gentleman, his name was Al, would come week after week telling me, I worked with his children actually with alternative medicine. And the reason he came to me was he had 3 types of cancer. And I sent him to 2 of the physicians I knew to find out if there really was chemotherapy that would help him. He had a lung cancer, he had a urinary bladder cancer, he had a prostate cancer. My thought was they would kill him with the chemo. And both physicians came back and said to me, I hope you have something real. We don't. We'll kill him with the chemo. So he came to me, and part of what I do, the same way you mentioned with the antiquity, they looked toward dreams before they helped you. I looked toward dreams and a little astrology as well. I always wanted to see where the stars were when this person was born. And again, not taking anything 100%, but taking a little bit from everything to say, what is it showing me? Part of his therapy, besides giving him a formula that I made, a physical formula, was to follow his dreams. Now, here's somebody who was in his 60s, never really remembered anything, but he was dedicated to do it because he knew that it was going to be something that was going to help him understand better his life. That's the first thing that I would say to anybody. If you really want to know who you are and you want to know what your incarnational journey is about, don't go buy books and listen to people talking. Just look at your dreams and begin there. Say, I really want to know my dreams. So each night before I go to bed, little piece of paper on the nightstand that says, I want to remember a dream. And I'd like you to incubate one. So if you want, take a tarot card. Don't look at it, put it down on the night table and say, all right, I would like to see my mother who passed away, or I got a problem at work I'd like to do, or there's something bothering me inside about me. Write it down and then go to sleep. And you don't remember it in the morning? Do what Al did. God bless him for months. He made up his dreams and we broke up the dreams until finally the dreams came. And then if you're really interested, yes, get someone who's doing good dream work to help you in the beginning.
Yeah.
Eventually be able to see what you do. But, for me, I like working with the alchemy. So I'm always looking at it as is what is it showing me alchemically? What stage are you at? If you have to break up something, you put something together. How is Luna and Soul working on you? What are they doing? But I truly believe that you need the dedication to want to do it. And the fact is, most people don't realize how important it is.
Yeah.
They don't realize, they think it's just a dream. And so they spend their life and their attention on transient things that are really meaningless. When in the end, that dream, I remember before Al passed, he was with me for 5 years, believe it or not. And the physician said they didn't think he had a year to live.
Well,
He went on vacations, he still worked, and he felt healthy. It really didn't disable him. I made a Chinese formula for him that I think really, really helped him tremendously. In the end, it was like he had a flu. It was Christmas time. And within a couple of days, he was gone, surprisingly, because he was doing so well. But he chased his family in the end, and he asked me to come in. And he said to me, I'm not afraid of anything because of the work, because of the work we did, because of what I saw in the dreams. My beloved, his wife had already died. He said, I know she's waiting for me. And I know that all of this time spent, and he would take that ferry over to Manhattan, waiting for me to get out of culinary school to do it. So it's dedication, but you have to have the understanding that that dream is really going to help you. This is your other half of consciousness. You love Jung. Jung famously said, we're not fully awake unless, in fact, we're looking at the dream to
yeah.
complement waking. So
Yeah.
first the dedication and the desire to do it, and then it will come.
Even because we dream, it's impossible not to dream. We
Oh,
dream
you dream every night.
constantly.
Yeah, whether or
Exactly.
not,
The
yeah,
matter is just to pay attention to it. But sometimes it's incredibly difficult. Sometimes is, I don't know, I used to connect to my dreams from my childhood. So I created works like that after dreams that I have, paintings, writings, whatever, or just navigating through life with the idea, because sometimes, while many people think, oh, it's just a dream, is they put it away. Whenever I dream something that I like, then I try to make it real. I try to use it like a blueprint for what I have to do during the day, to live again the emotion of the experience that I have in the dreams. And sometimes they're very, very strong, very powerful, very very daunting sometimes, because sometimes there are not always dreams. There are nightmares. Sometimes there are not dreams. There are beautiful. Sometimes there is something that is incredible. Sometimes you have to work on them, and have to try to understand.
absolutely.
And sometimes the understanding comes after 20 or 30 years that you have the dreams, and you have that the dreams are strange, and you don't know why, and then suddenly you understand. But we have to be open on that and try to be more connected with ourselves, with the others, and talk about it. But it's something that very few people do. And unfortunately, what I saw in the esoteric and occult world is an incredibly high level of superficiality. Because this is not a science, you cannot demonstrate what is right from what is is fake, is not real, everyone is saying something completely different, and sometimes it's incredibly outlandish or completely dead. You see that it's just a device to make money. I mean, if you open whatever
Yeah,
magazine
and
of
they
esoterica, you see advertising for things that they said, okay, this is problematic ethically. This is just money making. I mean, it's bad.
yeah, and I mean the fact being a lot of people do see the symbol or the deity, the being, the power animal as a an entity that's stuck in that image. And they fail to see that the image is just trying to give them a message. I mean, my inner guardians shift all the time. I know it's the same inner guardian, but the image that comes is a message to me, especially when I'm working with healing. I know that certain deity images, when they show up, person is seriously ill, and I know I really have to take care. When they show up as something that's more playful, like Bastet coming in one of my visions, I know that that's good, but it doesn't mean that Bastet exists or that Sekhmet exists, two goddesses from ancient Egypt, one that's a devourer, and the other that's a playful dancer. What it means is that the great divine is the hidden. And the Egyptians, I love the way that they described it because it's the hidden, the mysterious, the
Yeah.
watery depths of the unconscious is there. And it gives rise to everything. But the language to speak to us is the image, but not to get stuck on that image,
Yeah.
like you're saying, to think, oh, I always have this goddess that's with me. Okay. Or the angels that are floating around.
Yeah, this is the
Uh,
problem. Exactly. What I love, I mean, I never been a Catholic. I left, but then after university, I discovered Buddhism from an intellectual point of view, and I started to go deeper and deeper and deeper in Buddhism. And I think now I can define myself as a Buddhist. I believe in many of the principles. But what is interesting that Buddhism is, I mean, in Buddhist writing, in the sutra, you find a lot of gods. But I mean, someone that never maybe study or is a little bit more easy in the interpretation, they believe in different gods. But if you think about, if you talk about with someone to study more or is more, I mean, a wise man in the Buddhist camp or a monk and everything, they will tell you that the gods doesn't exist. They are just interpretation. They are
that's
symbolic entity. And this is what I like. They are symbolic representation of psychical entity,
well, I think
feelings, emotion,
yeah,
attitude is
right.
amazing. Or concept, abstract concept. And this is what I found incredibly, incredibly beautiful.
Well, I think this is similar to ancient Egypt. All the ancient gods and goddesses with strange heads of animals and bodies. This was one way to describe the aspects of the hidden one, of Amun. Um, there was no image, there was no name that could be put upon the divine. But all of these images, far from what the Christians felt and were frightened of with what they called the ones who were, polytheists with all of these different gods and goddesses, they wanted the one, and Akhenaten really wasn't a monotheist, which again is problematic in what today we believe. But like the Buddhists, each one of those images has a message for us, like the gods and goddesses who come to me. I don't look at them as gods and goddesses. I look at them as Amun coming, the great cosmic womb, has to have a language to communicate with us. And
Yeah,
it's not the verbal language. I often tell people when there's a lot of talk in your dream, your left brain is still awake. It's not the talking in the dream, it's the imagery, it's the language of the unconscious, the image, because it's open, it's going to tell you so much, and it means you have to dig like an archaeologist. But,
yeah,
well, quite right. For me, I feel like I'm a Sufi because we look at all religions and accept every one of them with all the nonsense on the top of the palimpsest, that page where we can see what's written last, but we don't see what's hidden underneath. And every one of them has some truth. We just have to do digging to find
yeah.
it.
And this is what I found very fascinating. But I would like to open the debate to the viewer and see if someone has a question for you, because I mean, this is an amazing opportunity to ask you questions. So if someone want to say something, have A question for Janet. This is the moment to speak. So don't be shy. Unmute and ask a question. It will
Or
be
Andrea, for that matter, please, if you have any questions for either one of us on a dream that you may have had or something perhaps involved with the journal or anything that you've heard. We have everybody so quiet.
But is the beauty of a little group is that we can involve if
Oh,
someone
so
wants to be involved, and we can deepen our talk. So don't be shy, please. Just silence. Add something, but they may is a notification someone else. Yes, let me see if someone has. No, not news in the chat. Sorry, I was just checking if someone maybe has problem with the microphone or something. No, there are no question
well,
in the
have
chat.
any of you had dreams that perhaps one stands in mind and still perplexes you that it stands with you, but you haven't fully comprehended its meaning? Is there anything like that? Or perhaps sometimes there's a dream that's come from childhood and kind of pops in your life at different times that you are remembering it, because that often has a meaning too if you've not seen it. Everyone's settled on dreams, or perhaps you're not remembering them, in which case, tomorrow morning when you wake up, make up one, please.
And writing down, so it will be always there.
Well, and that's part of it too, writing it down. And then sometimes during the day, something we call anamnesis happens. You woke up, you didn't remember your dream, you didn't write one down, but during the day, all of a sudden, someone says something or you see something, and all of a sudden, the dream comes floating back. Because dreams are not saved in memory the same way that waking memories are formed. And I think there's a reason. When we navigate the waking world, obviously, if we're touching something hot and we burned ourselves, it's good we remember next time not to put our hand into the fire on the stove. But a dream is a little different than that. And so what comes for us to grab and take. I mean, I wake up sometimes when I'm in a dreaming period 4 or 5 times a night. And I literally wake up, I either speak into my phone to record or I'll type it down into my iPad. And I'll go through that period for weeks because I've taught myself I want to wake up on the heels of the dream so that I immediately have it. And then, of course, I can end up spending the entire day on it if I have time. Most people
Yeah.
don't, but I'm a dreamer. My
No,
life.
it's absolutely fascinating. I personally, I notice that in the moment when I have under stress, immense stress, so there are moments in your life and you are fear for something, decision that you have to take, or a job that you are lost, that you have to find new one, or moment of uncertainty. I have recurring dreams that is always the same. They can change a little bit, but the substance is always the same. I mean, the beginning, I was curious about this pattern, but then I discovered the pattern is always the same. So
The
when you,
pattern is the same, but the reason why it changes is because if you haven't gotten it, it's going to give you a little bit different twist so that hopefully you do get it. But the
yeah,
fact that it keeps on coming back is that message that you still have to work on it. And I
yeah,
mean, I've seen this happen with people that bring it to therapy. And once we really, really clarify it, the weeks will
the
go by and people
yes,
will
the
tell me
dreams
it's not
change
there
or goes
anymore.
away completely. Yep. I have a friend of mine that was able to, a technique that I never mastered, I never managed to do it, unfortunately, conscious dreams. The idea of facing your
Oh,
dreams and changing them is something that is incredibly fascinating. The ability of be
the
a
lucid
little
dream.
bit, yep. For me, happened accidentally a couple of times, but I cannot control that. It is always something that I wanted to do. Sometimes happen, sometimes not. And there are things that I mean, for me, I ask you because this I ask you a question because I'm very curious. I always say I used to say to my mother or to my friends that there are two qualities of dreams. The dreams that are dreams that are connected to your psyche, or your unconscious, and then there are the dreams there are something different. The
Hmm.
dreams that are like premonition, the dreams where you have a message from a dead grandma or something like that. And when you dream it, I mean, for this happened to me, then I ask you if you have this experience. I mean, you're more knowledgeable than me, absolutely. You feel it that the quality of a dream is completely different. When I have my grandmother come into my dreams, or my mother now come into my dreams, is like a breaking in the narrative of the dreams. The quality change is like changing the radio, the station in a radio. Something change and you perceive it, I perceive it, and I know that this is something completely different. I mean, sometimes I dream my mother is this just a dream. I mean, it's connected to memory, to the loss, to everything. And sometimes I know that it's absolutely not like that. There is a message there that is completely different. There is something
No,
that I have to do.
yeah, absolutely. And it's all in the feeling. So you're 100% right there. Many times we just have a memory dream of someone who's passed away. And it's lovely and we're happy to have it, but it isn't really a visitation. A,
Exactly.
visit, a visitation dream is different. It doesn't last long. And often in the visitation, there isn't speaking. The person is there for a short time, but you are so energized by it. You are so aware that that's the real dream. I've had dreams, waking dreams, lucid dreams, where my husband, my son, and my daughter, once each, physically manifest. And that's something when that happens. They don't stay long. They're physically warm, just like a living physical being. There's a little conversation. In the case of my husband, he bent over the bed to kiss me good morning, like he was going to work. There were no words spoken. And I knew immediately, I mean, it was the side of the bed. We would go to work together. So it was not something that could come from memory.
Yeah.
And he disappeared quickly. My son as well. My daughter, it took 25 years. She was gone 25 years before she appeared standing at the window in my bedroom. And I knew right away that she was there, but obviously she had passed away. It's not like I wasn't cognizant of it. It was lucid. She came and I hugged her. And she said to me, she was the one who did speak. She said, "Don't forget me. And thank Daddy for my little pony." And she disappeared in my arms. The following morning, I related the dream to my husband. And I said, "This is what she said. I don't understand. Thank Daddy." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, I saved things from boxes I had saved all my children's things in boxes from when they were babies. We always had space in a basement or something." And I said, "I imagined them as teenagers opening these silly toys from when they were a year old or something, laughing, giggling, throwing out whatever they wanted."
Yes.
And I had notes. I had little notes. Today you were, 2 months old, 3 months old, 5 months old. This is what you did. This was your first smile. And this was the toy you loved. And of course, they didn't live long enough to see any of it. So at one point, I had said to my husband, "Just throw the boxes out. I can't even look at them. I mean, it would be too much emotion. I haven't looked at them in all these years. Just dump them." So we had a big dumpster on the property, and I thought he threw them out. Well, apparently he opened up boxes and he'd taken two items out of the box and he put them in the garage. And I said to him, "Well, if you saved them, why did you put them in the garage?" He said, "Well, I didn't want to make you cry, so I didn't bring them in." I said, "What did you save?" "Oh, I don't know." He said, "They were cute." I said, "Well, just go and get them." One of them was My Little Pony's stable. Now, he didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. And in the dream, my daughter told me to thank him for that. So they were definitely real visitations.
Yeah.
But in the dream, usually, and it's not so much about people are always looking for the prediction. The dream is going to come and there's the prediction. Um, Not necessarily so. Like so many will say to me, "Oh, I saw 9/11 with the buildings going down," or "I saw this." Usually, a dream like that would mean what's going down in you? What's the tower that's falling down
Yeah.
in you
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
need to do something? And that has more meaning. I mean, any place in the world, there's always going to be an earthquake or a fire or something else. And what does it have to do with you? The dream should have something to do with you. There are dreams that predict what's going to happen in the future. We got to watch very carefully about them
Yeah.
because the left brain can mess up and
Yeah. Yeah.
bring in a voice. But you hit the nail on the head when you said there's a feeling. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
different. So when that feeling comes, that's a true
Yeah.
meet. It's like the mediums will give a lot of information, and I work with mediums that I love, but it's not always a true meeting of someone on the other side.
Yeah.
A lot of it is all the psychic energy that's there, and it's very healing for a person, and I'm for that. That way.
Exactly. It doesn't matter at the end
But
if he's,
right,
yes.
it's healing. But you hit it to say that know the difference in the dreams by the feeling. If the
Yep. No,
feeling is deep, and as far as the lucid dream, people like it because they think they want to change the dream. I don't want to change the dream. I want
is,
to know what the dream wants to tell me, and I'm a lucid dreamer all the time. I'm a lucid dream. I'm an observer as well as a participant at the same time. Sometimes I'm looking and I know that my body is sleeping in bed. I know that I'm in a dream, but I also know that I'm the individual who's in that dream. So, I
yeah.
mean, and again, it says to me, my consciousness is far wider than what's between the cerebrum, the two ears. I mean, what's
Yeah.
up here? And I always thought that when I was in biology, that if somebody was to destroy my frontal lobe, they weren't destroying me. They was just destroying a transformer. My head merely helps to orchestrate a lot that's going on physiologically in my body. But when students would say to me, I taught anatomy and physiology in the university, they'd say, what's the most important organ? And I say to them, the one that you can't see. It's the ka, what the Egyptians would call the ka.
Yeah.
It's the fire that makes everything else work, and we don't see it. So, yeah, but it all
This is
is
very mystical. It's very beautiful to say.
well, in
Yeah, I
fact,
love it.
my meeting with Carl Jung didn't happen until the end of one of those courses. I was teaching pre-med students and PhD biology students, and one of the students came up and gave me Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. And he said to me, Dr. Piedilato, you really belong in the philosophy department. Not here. He said, I've never had anybody teach physiology the way you're teaching, because there was always a question. The anatomy, I used to say to them, go and memorize it, for goodness sake. I shouldn't spend my time teaching you the bone.
It's, no,
You just look at a book and memorize it. And for the physiology, I said, you've got to understand how it works. Don't
yeah,
memorize it. Understand how, and you'll
yeah.
never be lost on a test.
No, it's funny
But
because
yeah,
you mentioned the first book of Jung that I ever read. I was a teenager, and it's the book that changed my life. The things that really shocked me is that is I think it's the last book he ever written. He was very, very old already when he wrote the book. But you feel an energy. You say, this is more energy that I was a teenager. I said, this is, I mean, I'm more energy than I am. This
it's probably the
lust
one.
for life, curiosity,
Yeah,
open my, it was incredible. It was a meeting that, I mean, a reading that really changed my mind. I don't remember what was written in the book, but I remember the emotion I felt so vividly. This desire of creating, doing, living, experiencing is always, I mean, is amazing. I like that. I
but
like
see,
that.
in my life, with my studying all aiming toward the biology, the physiology, the anatomy, the biochemistry, I didn't know Jung. That wasn't part of my world. And here I am teaching physiology in the university in NYU. And the student ends up giving me, and those words, and he was right, you
Yeah,
belong. And I didn't have my second doctorate at that time. And it was interesting because years later, when my daughter was dying in Sloan Memorial with leukemia, that boy reconnected with me. He had gone on, he'd gotten his doctorate in biology as well. And his brother also was up there dying of leukemia. I mean, you talk about how the
yeah,
nodes of life connect, but a lovely, lovely gentleman. But again, Carl Jung didn't come early in my life. I was already teaching in the university level. And as I said, I never forget his words, you really belong in the philosophy department, not here in physiology. He said, I never had anybody teach it like this. And of course gives me the book. which
It's
I still
amazing.
have. Yeah. So I mean, life brings us in unexpected ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Like us, that we met so many
Yeah.
years ago, starting a conversation, and then we re-met after I don't know how many years, eight,
Yeah,
six,
well,
seven.
it was when I brought my I was just releasing the Mystical Dream Tarot when we met.
Yeah, yeah.
2019. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, wow. So, yeah. And then I remember you. It is the reason why I reconnect and everything. No, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And I think it's time for closing. It's more than an hour
sure.
that we're talking. It's fascinating. And I think we should do it again because there are
Yeah.
so many aspects in dreams that we can talk about and everything. And please, if you have the possibility, read the article that she wrote in for the Dscombobulator that is
Well, and
absolutely amazing.
do look for this online. I don't know if you can you see it here? Am I
Yeah,
losing?
yes, he's appearing, disappearing, and I like that because just the
Okay.
hand stay there and it's very mystical, very spooky. I love it.
Right. And
I
the
enjoy.
article, hopefully, I mean, that I'm going to be giving Andrea is about dreams being the discombobulator. So, I mean, we really have to discombobulate dreams. And there'll be a lot on the ancients and the way that they were the ones who were the questioners asking you to help you with your dream. So
Oh,
that's
amazing.
all to come in the next issue.
Yes, great.
And
I'm
we
very,
will
very
get
curious.
together. We will get together to talk. And
Yep,
so hopefully come next time. I'm grateful for everybody certainly that has shown up today. But come with a dream or come with a question on dreams. And we just love to hear from you. It is the conversation that we want. This is
absolutely.
really what's important because every one of you is important.
Thank you so much, Jenny, to be with us today. It was a
Oh, it's
real,
my
real
pleasure.
pleasure.
Really
And
my
thank to everyone. So have a good night or good day, depending where you are in the world. And see you soon all. Follow us if you have questions that you don't want to question publicly, maybe. I understand that.
Right.
You can write
And
to
again,
Janet.
also they can send you or they can send me if they've got
Exactly.
a
I
question.
understand that too. That sometimes there are things that are very personal and someone don't want to share. And I mean, I share here things that I never share everywhere. So I understand very well. But I feel that moving in another country finally free me. And so it's okay. Every one of us has his own path and his own personal journey to do.
No,
So
there's no right and wrong way for anything. There's
exactly,
just
exactly,
following a way. That's what's important.
exactly, exactly. Thanks to everyone
Okay.
and
Abundant blessings.
bye. Thank you,
Okay.
Janet. Thank you, every one of you.